on my left, I have Alan McGee, Scottish music industry legend, who set up Creation Records, signed the Jesus Mary Chain, Primal Scream, Oasis, to name a few. He's here to tell us all about this, and for the younger members of the audience, I think, Alan, perhaps you can start by telling us how you got into the music industry and what your first signings were, really.
Okay, well, I never really liked music. No, I'm not. I actually wasn't a joke. I never really liked music. I kind of liked Bowie, and then after about 14, I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll be in the music industry, and I kind of discovered punk, and I sort of learned the bass because any idiot can play the bass guitar, and luckily I actually managed to hook up with a guy that could really play. It's a guy in Primal Scream called Furniss. And actually, funnily enough, I grew up with Bobby Gillespie, whose dad was a trade unionist. So we kind of we're just sort of friends through that sort of really thing, that kind of politics thing. But I actually never really liked music. And then we went to London, and then I kind of started putting out these records. With eternal respect to Rough Trade Distribution, gave me a P&D deal, and we sold about 500, 600, 700 records each one. And then this band called the Jesus and Mary Chain, they played my club. That I had started to make a lot of money out of this club because I had this crap job for British Rail at £70 a week, but I had managed to start making about £700 a week being a club guy. And the Mary Chain came along, and then I signed the Mary Chain, and then it just got a bit weird. It's like they exploded, and I became the manager, and then we became quite big. And I still thought it was a kind of joke, really, to be honest, until about 28, when I realised, oh God, we're going to make a lot of money out of this. And that's how I kind of entered the music industry. It's kind of a default.
So, I mean, what happened with the Mary Chain? Did they come and play 15 minutes of feedback in your club, or what kind of attracted you to them?
I don't even think they had 15 minutes. They kind of they sort of, even their sound was, they would probably argue that it was thought out, but it actually was even invented as you go along. We had a vocal PA system, which I think it was an H&H PA system that I'd bought for £200 or £300. And William used to play his guitar so loud. I think they actually sounded in these days in '84 as if they were like the Ramones, Olaf. But really, to be honest, because Joe Foster couldn't mix sound, although he would argue that he's a genius, he basically was feeding them back. So there was this incredibly unusual sound of feedback and sound, and that's how the Mary Chain sound came about. And when I realised that it really wasn't their sound was when we came to mix the first single, Upside Down, and they wanted it remixed like a Ramones record, and we did a mix like that, and it was rubbish. And me and William went in the next day, and I was the one that was on the feedback button, and I was shoving the feedback from 9.5 to 10, and for 2 weeks they thought it was rubbish. And the only person that actually got it was Gillespie. And me and Gillespie went, no, that's your sound, that's actually what you sound like. And then the Rough Trade Distribution people heard it, and they went, this is massive. And it was massive. It was sold something like 50,000 singles in the first month, which is incredible. And I don't, that's probably a #1 record now.
And I mean, they were notorious for getting pissed at gigs, fighting, or more often than not, getting attacked as well.
Well, they actually kind of did it for different reasons for me. I mean, I really just did it because I didn't really want to live in Glasgow, and I wanted to take drugs. I wanted to live in a mansion, and I wanted to fuck beautiful women. So that's why I did it. Music really was a bit the last thing on my agenda.
Can you manage a band like that? Or?
Not really, no. The idea, but to be honest, in these days, my behaviour was worse than theirs anyway. So it wasn't really a case of managing them. They were kind of like, they don't really get any bad behaviour really, probably in the 90s, really. We were any bad behaviour right for day one. I mean, we only get any rock and roll because it was like because of the bad behaviour, really, to be honest. I mean, I never really knew about music until I met Joe Foster. I mean, I just liked Bowie and punk, to be honest. I knew about as much about music as, you know, any little kid, you know. And then Foster introduced me to the Velvets and Big Star and The Doors and Elvis and stuff like that. And then suddenly I was supposedly knew about music, but really Joe Foster had played me the music. So to be honest, to give Joe Foster his credit, Joe Foster was the music behind creation always, and he, you know. And then I suppose I fronted it, and then maybe I was good with the bands, but really we were just like, for the first 10 years we were just always more rock and roll than the bands. It wasn't until we met Oasis that really we were less rock and roll, you know.
When I look back through my record collection, I look at the way that creation things were packaged or limited editions. Quite a lot of the time as well. You get an album as 245s, 212 inches rather than like 133. I mean, were these basically marketing things, or were there reasons for you doing?
I think it was. Well, it depends what band you're talking about. I mean, I think with Primal Scream, I think it was because Bobby thought that that they sounded better if you put 3 discs in Screamadelica. Do you know what I mean? You know, so it actually sounded better. But I don't really think it was a marketing thing. I think it was by default a marketing thing, but I don't think it was ever meant to be.
So would you give your artists quite a lot of freedom in terms of, you know, how you release these things? Or
yeah, we did. I mean, sometimes we would. I think it went on and we became more involved with Sony and stuff. I think that, you know, we get more and more forced into having to have hits and having to chart records and play the game. But I think up to probably about 94, I don't think we played the game at all, really, to be honest. You know, and I think we just put out things because we wanted to put them out. It was kind of ours really up to 94, and then we started selling records, and then I think Sony got worried because definitely maybe sold 7 million, and then they realised I was in charge, and I think they got worried.
And what happened then? I mean, did you...
Well, then they infiltrated us with lots of their people who they brought in to look after the accounts, which means stop that lunatic spending money on Irvin Welsh.
And what happened? They were just suddenly sitting in your office, or?
Kind of. I did. There was about a drug rehabilitation, and then I came back, and then I had a lot of new employees, all ex Sony and EMI and things like that. You know, I don't even think these people knowingly had an agenda. To be fair, I think they just came in and, you know, like were placed, but they were kind of corporate, and at the end of the day, we sort of became corporate by default, you know. But we ended it before it became embarrassing, which I'm quite pleased about.
You sold half of Creation to Sony.
Yeah.
I mean, you seem to have had these various experiences with majors over the years. Did you not get to the point where you're like, that didn't work the first time, it didn't work the second time, or was
I just kept taking the money.
So they just kept giving you money?
Yeah.
And do you think that could happen now? I mean, do you think that there's
I think there's
any opportunities for
again.
that?
I think EMI's fucked. I think it's somebody will go and rob it.
And what about, you know, other people? I mean, do you think...
I don't mean the artists, because our prerequisite was never take the money off the artists. It was always just like rob the corporations.
And were there any that got away? I mean, you did Universal as well, didn't you?
Well, maybe we've had them all, yeah.
And do you think that that's what allowed you to keep going with Creation? I mean,
not really. We actually made money in the end, believe it or not, because Oasis sold a lot of records. So actually, at the end of the day, I think I made Sony money, which I'm kind of pissed off about. But we actually made Sony a load of money. But we always did pretty well with, especially with our publishing company, which was weird because all the bands that I signed, nobody liked them. And I used to publish them all, and we still publish them to today. So we publish Oasis and the Primals and Eugene Kelly, who Kurt Cobain, you know, like covered, and all these bands that nobody wanted at the time, you know.
You obviously had the sort of sex, drugs, and rock and roll from the 80s on. Is it something that if you're choosing to sort of try and tick those 3 boxes, would you do the same again? I mean, would you go into music, or do you think you'd choose some
Probably banking,
other
I
genre?
think.
Probably what?
Probably banking. Probably get more sex, drugs, and rock and roll than music.
Still, do you think, or do you think
Well, I
that's...
think recently, the bonuses these fuckers are getting.
You know, the album you're most proud of was definitely Maybe.
Yeah.
Are there any other bands that you're particularly pleased with as well, you know, from a business perspective and a music perspective?
Not really, no.
There's nothing that you never rifle through your old stuff and find records that you like?
No, I don't really listen to music, to be honest.
Not even your own stuff?
That's
Or not
rubbish.
your own
Why
releases?
would I listen to my own records?
I mean, do you have any ones that you particularly hate, or were there any sort of
No,
musicians
I
that
hate
you...
anybody. I mean, I'm a farmer.
But what do you grow?
No, we get horses and pigs. We cut the horses up. But no, we get pigs and just like loads of stuff. The wife does all that, you know.
How many pigs have you got?
I don't know, about 100 or something.
So, I mean, there's talk of this creation film that's...
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Well,
still
that's not really
getting
me, that's
this-
Danny O'Connor. That's going to come out. I think he's going to do band showcasey things all over the world all summer. And then I think he's going to put it... I told him the other day not even go to cinema with it, just put it straight to DVD, and he'll probably sell 1 million.
So what, is it taking the form of a documentary about the label?
Yeah,
or-
it's actually quite funny, believe it or not. They kind of based around Noel, me and Bobby. And Noel's very, very funny in it. I'm quite me in it, which is sometimes funny, sometimes a bit pathetic. And then Bobby's actually quite sage in it. He's kind of like the oracle of creation. Bizarrely Gillespie, I can't believe it, but there you go. He's the one that kind of like has it the most sus, believe it or not. He must have... I mean, the amount of that drugs that fucker took, I can't believe that you actually can remember any of it.
And are there any other artists in it? Or?
Yeah, everybody's in it, man, you know. Yeah, but that's kind of based... That's the kind of 3 people that kind of like have got the most kind of input to it, I think.
And I mean, apart from interviews, what else is in it?
then
Sort of kind of
I
clips and
I
live
don't really
footage?
know because you're asking the wrong person here, but I mean, for what I can gather off of Danny O'Connor, he's got 3 hours now of you must see footage, and he's trying to cut it down to 90 minutes. And in the 90s, obviously, was a moment, a time, and you know, it's probably never going to be better than that for anybody. You know, in the music business, because people bought CDs in and stuff. But this has been an interesting decade. There's been a lot of stuff that we've all learned, you know.
Do you think you've enjoyed it more as well because you've seen it sober and you've got a kind of different perspective on it?
Well, I didn't really have a choice to see it sober, but yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. I've never really examined. I mean, I quite like this decade. Well, last decade, I quite like it. It almost seems like as you get older, you only really deal with the people that you want to deal with, which is kind of cool. Do you know what I mean? And I think everybody seems to be like that as they get older, you know.
And,
Thanks. Just anybody that's in a band. I don't know if anybody is in a band. Is anybody in a band here? Didn't think so. Or is it somebody in a band?
yeah,
One
question.
person. Right, great, brilliant. Now, all I'd say is just don't give in. That's the most important thing. Do you know, just keep going. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's like there's a million reasons why people tell you to stop. Just keep going. Thanks.